It's true.
All right, everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. We have the Epiphany Triple Beer back in stock, made by Father Rainier himself. It'll be sold out in about 10 minutes due to rave reviews, so get them while we still have them. Tonight we have Sebastian Garren. He's the Executive Director at St. John Paul II Preparatory School. His talk is titled St. Louis as New Rome, the Social Science of Building a Great Catholic City. This time around, Father Rainier couldn't think of anything to say to roast him or make fun of him.
Well, I've got something about he kicked some shoes into some blinds when he was in school, which is odd because now he's the headmaster of the school.
I wasn't a good student.
Exactly.
So that's it. That's the roast, I guess. Until next time. All right, let's give a round of applause.
Thank you for the very soft roast. Can you hear me in the back? Is it good enough? I project pretty well, but maybe it gets... Is it okay? You're good? You're happy? Good. Okay, so events like these, they're a public service to the community. And those who put them together don't get the full reward of their effects. So, thank you, Adam, for serving those beers. And Father Rainier for inviting me. And Garrison for just randomly having AV material in his car. You want a microphone? I'll hook you up. Oh, yeah? All right, so maybe this is one way of summarizing the talk as a call for more creative conviviality. I spend my time deliberately studying economics, which is a sad thing to think about. I write philosophy, poetry, practice math, become a nerd in the dismal science of institutions, education, policy, urban growth, literature, arts, and sciences, so that I can share this information with others and be a dilettante. That's my goal. In addition to running JP2 and teaching high school classes and being a husband and dad, I think about how St. Louis can have a renaissance, how St. Louis can spring up again. It's been called the New Rome, or the Rome of the West, and it was once upon a time a first-rate city. It's a good city today. St. Louis is a good city today. I love St. Louis. But honestly, it's not like the first-rate city. And I don't mean just the city itself. I mean the whole metropolitan area. So a lot of these ideas I'm just testing out. And so what I offer is not a clear answer, do this in the St. Louis region will become great. All your problems will disappear. You'll feel happy. You'll feel fulfilled. You will no longer have bad breath. I cannot promise those things. But what I can offer are several useful tools for thinking about metropolitan life. And I think they'll be useful to you and allow us to have a very good discussion for Q&A. So let's talk about the city, what a city is, what's a modern city all about. One way to summarize that, I think, is two things: culture and dating markets. So if you're not interested in either of those, a city isn't really for you. If you win the dating market, and you don't care about culture, you'll likely leave the city, broadly conceived, when the children start coming along. And maybe that's your plan. You come to Communio, you go to lots of little events, you meet people, eventually a spouse, maybe find a better job, and then you leave for the deepest reaches of Lincoln County. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really is not. But in this talk, I'm going to provide an alternative vision for St. Louis that emphasizes the need for creating a thriving cultural metropolitan area. So keeping in mind culture and dating markets, I will present these three key ideas from social science that are primarily economics about how to make a culturally vibrant Catholic city. So the first of those ideas is culture comes first. Cities today are about people first and commerce second. Many people think that cities exist for jobs, by which they mean big employers like Boeing, Barnes, Mercy. And this is a fundamental mistake. Successful American cities are places where businesses get made or move to take advantage of the high-skilled people who already live there. Holding skills constant, businesses, especially factories, want to move where land and labor is cheapest. So, most modern American businesses are not huge enterprises that require lots of workers. Rather, they're small firms that need a reliable supply of skilled workers, machinists, programmers, mapping experts, biotech researchers, clinical psychologists, office organizers, those weird people who interface between institutions, whatever they do. In the 19th century, cities were built around their transportation costs. So St. Louis is on a river. Detroit, when it existed, was on the Great Lakes. But as transportation costs fell and land and labor costs went up, the businesses left the cities, first moving to the suburbs, then leaving altogether. And this leaves cities, especially the modern Midwestern cities, quite vulnerable. Ed Glazer, the economist at Harvard, has this to say in his book, Triumph of the City. Give me my Ed Glazer voice. Cities thrive when they have many small firms and skilled citizens. Detroit was once a buzzing beehive of small-scale, interconnected inventors. Henry Ford was just one among many gifted entrepreneurs. But the extravagant success of Ford's big idea destroyed that older, more innovative city. Detroit's 20th century growth brought hundreds of thousands of less well-educated workers to vast factories, which became fortresses apart from the city and the world. While industrial diversity, entrepreneurship, and education lead to innovation, the Detroit model led to urban decline, and the age of the industrial city is over. So today, geography counts for very little. To quote from Dune, place is only place. It's from the novel, not the movie. People are everything. So the question becomes, what induces people to gather together in one place? I see it as culture, beauty, fun, decent weather, desirable social ties, and yes, dating opportunities. Or as the Californian poet Robinson Jeffers says, music and religion, honor and mirth, renew life's lost enchantments. If we build these, we attract young, energetic, quirky, intelligent people like yourselves, and firms follow in that wake. If I am right, then the causal arrow is from culture to economic growth, meaning that the core units that make for a successful city are family, community, and creativity. Economic growth and career opportunities and more cultural investment follow from those. So that's the first idea. Cities are about people first and commerce second. And this brings us to the second idea, agglomeration effects. Now, agglomeration is an ugly word. It sounds like it's an ingredient in Jell-O, but it means the effect of having an increasing amount of something. The idea of agglomeration effects in economics is that 30 people are not merely 30 times as productive as one person. They are often many more times productive because the 30 people learn from each other and are encouraged by one another. You could take this example from St. Louis de Montfort's book, The Secret of the Rosary. You know that paperback that's literally everywhere? He says, somebody who says his rosary alone only gains the merit of one rosary. But if he says it together with 30 other people, he gains the merit of 30 rosaries. This is the law of public prayer. That idea that grace is greater in public gatherings is a distinctly Catholic one. But it is also found in economics under the guise of agglomeration effects. Alfred Marshall's 1890 textbook, Principles of Economics, really, it's boring, but it describes agglomeration in loving detail. He says, when a community has thus chosen a locality for itself, it is likely to stay there long. So great are the advantages which people following the same mode of existence get from near neighborhood to one another. The mysteries of the trade become no mysteries, but are, as it were, in the air. And children learn many of them unconsciously. So the creative communities beget a creative, community-minded atmosphere. And trying to deliberately improve ourselves and each other through acts of community make a great and desirable city. And I think we could be doing a lot on this front. Community is the opposite of atomization and excessive individualization, which plagues modern American society. Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone, outlines how civil institutions and the groups of the sort we need have progressively declined since the 1950s. The cities that are doing well today are doing well because they're benefiting from agglomeration effects. And those that will do well in the future will do so because they have found ways to make those types of communities that create these effects. And it doesn't take an army to change trends or change the trajectory of a culture. Nassim Taleb, does anyone know of him? He's a pugnacious philosopher of economic uncertainty, and he offers this note in his book, Skin in the Game. He's a Lebanese Catholic, he's crazy. Don't follow him on Twitter. The entire growth of society, whether economic or moral, comes from a small number of people. Society does not evolve by consensus, voting, majority, committees, verbose meetings, academic conferences, and polling. Only a few people suffice to disproportionately move the needle. Renaissance Florence had a population of about 50,000 people. And it was only a few workshops that were required to build something very special. Those people who move the needle are always part of a network that's committed to sharing and building culture. And that arises for us when we are trying to build a more substantial, beautiful, and creative St. Louis. So that's the second idea. Agglomeration effects create exponential creativity. And that brings us to idea number 3. Don't sell people on your creative ideas. Signal your ideals. If you're at all like me, then selling people on stuff feels like selling your soul. It seems banal, venal, inauthentic. You know, you're knocking on doors, raising money for the school fundraiser, and no one wants to talk to you because you're interrupting their day. What could be worse than marketing? Trying to convince people who do not want what you have to offer is a waste of your time and a waste of theirs. However, everyone wants to be delighted and to find their niche. So the problem, really, of human life, of society, is how to connect people to those for whom they have an affinity, but don't know it yet. The key is signaling and selection effects. So signaling theory, for economists, is all about sacramentals. It's outward signs that ought to positively correlate with inner dispositions. So think of a yellow-banded poison dart frog. It's jet black with neon yellow stripes. It is poisonous. Do not eat it. But how do you know? Because it looks poisonous. It is sending out nature's amphibious, leave me alone signal. On the other hand, at Urban Chestnut, go to Urban Chestnut, good brewery. The plain, wooden, distraction-free mead hall benches, those are literally singing. Come, sit down, have a conversation with friends. They're signaling what they want you to do when you go to Urban Chestnut. Groucho Marx once said, I don't want to be part of any club that have a guy like me as a member. Groucho's acceptance into the club is a negative signal of a low enough quality club that he himself would not want to join. Whatever it is you are trying to build, whatever peers you are trying to attract, making sure you are sending out the signals that will attract your people is the first step to overcoming alienation and atomization. And it's the first step to leveraging the interconnected urban environment to attract people who will like what you have to offer. So first comes the signal. We fire off a bat signal into the night and see who shows up. And you have faith, that's right. And then you have faith that those who show up are the ones whom God wanted to show up. You don't feel disappointed that 3 people show up to your thing. Those are the 3 people who want to be there. A selection effect means that the people who are attracted to you and your creative group are not random. They're rather a people who are inclined to what you have to offer. People compatible with your mission, who have been stumbling along the edge of your social network, seeking just such an environment before they saw your bat signal. There are many ways to signal. The choice of how we construct our physical environment signals our values. A park filled with children playing doesn't exist without local children. It doesn't exist without a safe neighborhood and people devoted to bringing their resources together to make a park. The art in our house, the design of our streets, our choice of public music, the tabs on our computer. I always have like 15 up. These signal our priorities and they reveal our preferences. So the best signals are not loud in the way a commercial is, but they're discoverable. Like how a Decemberists album t-shirt says more about you than if you simply said you like the Decemberists. I love the Decemberists, but I'm not wearing the t-shirt. So can you trust me? I don't know. Even a shirt can lead people to approaching you because that external signal of an interior disposition. So selection requires discoverability. Discoverability is sometimes a technical term in like graphic design or social science, but it's like the light hidden under a bushel principle. It is a measure of the possibility for others to discover what you have to offer. By sending off the right signals, people will know who you are and what we are about. And when they search online or see St. Louis in social media, the same signals of a rich inner core may start to bleed through. So that's idea number 3. Signaling allows proper self-selection. So once a subculture's signal and substance properly rub together, lightning strikes the frozen mountain of creativity. A cascade of snow descends, agglomeration effects set in on this avalanche. It's accelerating down the mountain, and the signal becomes even stronger, so that even from many miles away, the sight and sound of that cascade resonates. And those are the ideas that I have to offer today, that we can take with us for envisioning how to build a culture in St. Louis. Put culture first. Look for ways of creating agglomeration effects because they create exponential productivity. And signal to allow selection. Be willing to cast the signals out there. And perhaps next time we'll figure out how gladiator fights will play into all this, because you can't have Rome without gladiator fights. And I guess the last takeaway is that it requires intentional effort to build culture. and maybe we'll talk more about how to do it in Q&A. And as you know, I start mostly with schooling and education. So thank you very much. Any questions, thoughts, ideas? Yes, sir.
My name is Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Hey, Jay. Let's keep that up. Let's not stop that. I like that. Jay.
So I got just one leading question. Are you familiar, and then I have a follow-up question. Are you familiar with the All Things New campaign?
I am familiar with George Orwell, yes.
So, that comment aside, have you considered, so two questions, have you considered submitting this presentation to the All Things New committee? And what do you think the Luther Rose logo signals?
What is the what signal?
The Luther Rose logo, the symbol that they've come out with?
Oh, I have not been paying attention, that close attention to the branding. I've been on the website. I don't know what that signals. When I looked at the All Things New webpage, well, I would like to, is this the type of thing you would submit to the All Things New campaign? I don't know much about it.
So, I mean, I think they're trying to reinvent, rebuild St. Louis Catholics, right? They're all things new. We're trying to rediscover St. Louis Catholics.
Sure.
The culture of St. Louis. So because of that, I think that this presentation would provide some insight to the people leading this effort, and I think that's very important that they have decisions to make.
Yeah, they're very important decisions. I don't mean to joke too harshly on it. I'm just making fun of the name All Things New.
I just feel like what comes out of it is going to be something that's going to affect St. Louis as a culture,
For sure.
Or it could in a good or bad way.
Yeah.
And your presentation, in my opinion, that's my way of saying, hey, maybe you should send this up to them if they haven't, don't have their own advisors. It would be something for them to consider. Leisurely read.
I don't know. I don't have it in there, but if you do, I'll happy to connect about that.
So I don't know a lot about JP2, but if the city is the place to build the culture in the community, why is JP2 all the way out in St. Charles County?
Well, first of all, St. Charles is a city, and it's fairly close to Old Town St. Charles. Also, JP2 is also in South County. If you did not know that. Okay, it is literally 1.75 miles away from the city limits, down here on Lime. So, I mean, my goal is for JP2 to take over all of St. Louis. So, the entire area from Illinois to Lincoln County. So, it's not a, you got to start somewhere. Yes. Oh, I was calling on this lady here, but then I'll get you.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I'm really sympathetic to a lot of the sort of things that you're saying about, look, we should build culture, we should bring our values into how we're building culture, but I find a lot of times it's a little bit abstract, and I know my values as a Catholic and, a millennial, whatever else, but I'm not always sure what that has to do with me as a citizen of St. Louis. What should I be doing, advocating, paying attention to as a young person who wants a city that reflects my values? I guess, what do we build besides Catholic statues? I don't know.
Well, I think there's more to art, right, than just Catholic statues.
Yeah,
right?
but it's just what should we be looking at in your opinion?
Okay, well, I think everyone has their own talents to bring to the fore, right? One thing I do is I write open letters to people. I'll write a letter to a friend. I'll say, I'm writing from St. Louis, I'm writing to you. It might be a friend who's in St. Louis or a friend who's abroad. And then I'll post their response also online. And so it's just open online emails, letters for other people to read. And the people know that someone in St. Louis is just talking to other people around St. Louis and in the world about things that might interest them. Another thing you can do is be part of a band, be part of a group that makes art, that makes something creative, that works on a project, that researches, I don't know, international relations together, anything of that sort. You should bring your Catholic values with you to all of those things.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, what issues? Like, what should I be reading? What should I be caring about? Because like parks are good, but I don't know what else. You know, I find it abstract and hard to find sometimes what to care about.
Well, I find it very easy to find too many things to care about. I mean, you could care about zoning laws, you could care about regulation on housing. You could care about
All things new.
you care about all things new. Father Raniero shaking his head says, "Don't care about that."
Care about bike lanes.
Father Raniero cares about biking, but he doesn't want a community for that. He wants to do that alone. So I totally agree with you that things can be way too abstract, and I've tried to be a little more concrete by providing just like 3 ways of thinking about things. But part of it is like the journey of self-discovery. You know, you discover what type of community you actually care about, what type of culture you want to bring into the world. It's not, like I said at the beginning, I don't have a handbook of you do these steps to build culture and community. It's not that simple. It requires individual groups of people who have shared projects. It's not like a top-down program that I could offer you. Yes, Elise?
I would dare add to that by saying, even on a smaller basis, for people who don't necessarily maybe have the time or even conviction or, like grounding yet to pursue specific causes or social causes or whatnot, even just in socialization and getting to know other people and discussing with other people, you're starting to pinpoint those areas that you and other people share in common, and in you being approachable and just being open to discussion and the things that you are interested in, you are developing that with other people around you and drawing other people around you and developing those thoughts and ideas.
In the book Bowling Alone, Robert Putnam has this nice distinction between mockers and schmoozers. So these are Yiddish terms. A schmoozer is the guy who just kind of comes over to hang out and talk. And there's a lot of schmoozers, and that's good. People should just hang out and talk with each other. That's culture and that's community. Hang out, play board games, do your D&D, do whatever it is you do, play music. And then mockers are people who get together and actually have a purpose. Like all of the computer programmers in this room get together. All of the tech guys get together. All of the guys who work for the government and government contractors get together. And they talk about their work and they improve their work together. That's being a mocker, as opposed to a schmoozer. But you need both to have a thriving culture. And sometimes maybe your local friend group is too far in one end than the other. But I think we need both, like to have a successful community. Oh man, I'm just gonna go back this direction. Greg.
Okay, so I forgot who I was reading, but they were kind of talking about the nature of institutions as they develop. So it said that a lot of them, they start out kind of what you're talking about. They arise as a grassroots thing because the community needs it. And then in the more developed stages, they become not so much for the need of the community, but like a self-serving thing that exists for its own sake. So, I kind of ran into this out in Breckenridge Hills, is that there were a group of people that wanted to start a community garden. And at that point, the local government and the big chains there were like hand in hand, because they were like, oh, well, we want people going to Walmart, or we want people going local, meaning Schnucks, which is still a big chain, even though I guess it's local. So it was, they did not want anything that was going to take those, tax dollars away from the government. So they kind of worked hand in hand. So as far as some things, how do you get around the, I guess, the cronyism and the red tape, or is it just a matter of picking your battles and, not doing certain things?
I don't have a fully general answer to how to get around that, but my basic instincts is always, if you don't like something, go build your own thing. And that's the way I am. If I don't like something, I just build something else that's my own. If I'm running into too many roadblocks, like, I think you should try to, if you're having problems with the community garden, ladies and guys, curse them with their community, with their tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes. Anyway, but I do think a general solution is, if your society is dynamic enough, you should be able to create your own thing and compete. And that's kind of what our society is better set up to do than any other society in the history of humanity. Yeah.
I have more of a comment than a question, but I'd be interested in your opinion about this. So, my saying this probably is going to alienate half the room. I don't know, because I don't know many of you too well. But I mean this from the heart as a traditional Catholic. Something very, very simple that we could all do in order to restore the church in St. Louis, to make the city Catholic, is we could all just stop going to the Novus Ordo Mass.
Amen.
Yeah, just go to the traditional Mass exclusively. That would be a concrete step. I say this as someone who's never been to the Novus Ordo. I only go to St. Francis de Sales. So now I know your school is called John Paul II, and he was not a traditional Catholic, but I'm interested in your reply to that. But that's what I would say. So that's a very simple thing we could do. Just never go to the new Mass. So.
I don't see how that works towards building community.
That's a drastic decision.
Do what?
It's kind of a drastic decision.
Why?
But
Drastic to make it
how about this? I think there is, like I said at the beginning, a lot of value in having people and allowing people the freedom to build their thing, right? And for people who want the Latin Mass, it is good for them to be able to have that, in general. And for people who want the new Mass in Latin, it is good for them to be able to have that. And for people who want the Mass entirely in the vernacular, it is good for them to have that. Because the world is filled with many people. And an urban center like St. Louis needs to be able to serve all people who are going to come from different places and need to be served. And it's a death to an urban environment if it becomes entirely monocultural. That's not going to work. Or at least I've never seen it work in my study of history.
I advise you to try to signal that to people instead of selling.
What do you mean? Can you elaborate on that? What does that mean? Those are buzzwords.
We can talk about it.
Well, I mean,
All right, can I get, there was one person back here and then I'll come over to this direction. Okay. If you speak up, please.
I was interested in hearing your opinion on Simone Bell. She's worth reading.
Simone Bale is definitely worth reading. I was assigned to read her in confession once. Yes, you did. I mean, I'm breaking my own seal of confession here.
Why are you looking at him?
He might have assigned it, or a priest that looks really similar. Okay, here then Bethany.
I just wanted to kind of ask about this whole the beauty of agglomeration effect and the beauty of developing a city, right, and a bunch of colleges, but where that fine line is before you kind of merge into the global culture or the global community or this kind of globalism that we're entering in, where you start losing control.
Yeah, there are two different ways. My mind is cut in half on this. So on the one hand, when I go traveling, I don't want to go to capital cities because all capital cities basically are the same. They look the same. But it also is probably true that for any major city, there are thousands of flourishing, exciting subcultures that I just don't have access to. So when I think about a large globalized city, from the outside, they do tend to kind of look boring and the same, and like not have that unique flavor. But there's generally, but that's just because I'm a tourist and I don't know what I'm doing or where the good places are. If you have a couple million people living in the same place, there's going to be a lot of good subcultures there. I just presume this is a fact of human nature. Some less than others, depending upon the environment and the history of development. But I'm generally optimistic that in the midst of globalization, it creates the opportunity for more fine-tuned niches. So like, you know, when I was a kid, there wasn't as many different fandoms available to you, right? There was no internet. Like you couldn't find, I would not have been able to find the music I currently listened to when I was a kid, or the art that I currently enjoy, because that just wasn't in my immediate environment. So I think of course there's trade-offs there, but I think there's a lot of benefits that can get overlooked when you look at just the veneer of the outside in tall buildings. Bethany?
I liked the idea about signaling and how you talked about just like, it kind of reminded me, I don't remember which saint said it, but preach the gospel if necessary, use words.
Yeah, usually apocryphally given to St. Francis,
Yeah.
but I don't think we have a good citation on that. Yeah.
I was just wondering, what are some great examples of signaling that you've seen, or like things that you try to do in your daily life to signal to your people?
Yeah, well, talking about stuff like this, of course, is signaling to whoever my people might be, because all I do is be a nerd. But I don't know. Does anyone have any really good examples of signaling that they want to share?
Yeah, like when you're out with your friends and you're going out to dinner or lunch, you all pray together before you eat. It makes a big impact on everybody else on the restaurant.
Oh, and there's nothing quite like going to like the WashU campus and like praying before you're eating, and like 15 other kids go. I'll do that. I'm like way too old to be there, but I'm still like, I'm just going to go into the mess hall, sit down, and pretend to pray. It's a way to force them to pray. Oh, the cassock, of course, is a great signal. And of course, the Roman collar is a signal too. Stay away from me, I'm taken. The wedding ring, of course, is a very important signal. Being ring checked is always helpful. Yeah.
You could download the Hallow app that allows you to follow along with like the rosary, and then invite your friends to download the app so that you can get reminders to pray and like the rosary.
Love it. It's great.
You're using signals, so you're basically saying that all these things are sort of sacramental is what a signal is. I thought signaling was just doing the thing instead of showing the thing.
So signaling, if it's going to be done well, needs to be tightly bound into doing it. Otherwise, it can be a fake signal. And there's a lot of fake signaling that happens.
Yeah, like all things new, for example.
Let's keep it positive. Keep it positive. So, and also, let's also try. One thing we can do for building a good culture, just a little preachy here, is trying to avoid cynicism. Cynicism is dangerous for creativity. It's very hard to be creative when you're also constantly being critical of yourself and of others. So, I know, we're drowning in irony. Yeah. Oh, but I didn't clarify the question, Jay. Jay's asking, is signaling more about a sacramental, or is it more about just doing the thing? I think of signaling as doing the thing, but also doing it in a way that's discoverable. Does that make sense?
Like the protest of the St. Louis statue, like over the past couple of years, like that's something that like allowed Catholics around town to have this like external signal, like, hey, this is the saint that our city is named after, and we think he's baller, and he should take down his statue.
As they say, he is hella baller. Last question.
This one's not really a question, but in terms of like signaling, like for me, I always find service and volunteerism pretty important things to me. So like I did like a year of AmeriCorps. I did other like I volunteered in the fall, and locally I volunteer with like the International Institutes because they have like, all the incoming refugees from Afghanistan. So like I just try to break it down to like, oh, what can I do to like be doing the right thing? And like I just haven't been in a place where I have time that I can go give to others, and to me that's pretty important because I do get a lot out of that. So I just say finding a way to give back, do the right thing with it. Any way you can find. Like I also volunteer at the Grant House because they need people to like help run the front desk because the park rangers are really busy. So
What's your name?
Tarragon. Hi.
Tarragon. If you want to learn more, talk to Tarragon. He can set you up.
Sure.
Some good volunteer
If you want to
opportunities.
volunteer, come let me know.
All right. I guess that we have to wrap it up. If you want to come talk more, I'll definitely be here drinking this triple.
And we're gonna do last call at the bar. You got
And there'll be last call at the bar. Happy to talk more. Thanks, everyone.